Order. Call the honourable member for Wills.
Cap. Australian mammal fauna is the most distinctive in the world, and 86% of our land mammal species are found nowhere else. The most comprehensive assessment of the conservation status of Australian mammals is the Action Plan for Australian Mammals 2012, and it makes for some very troubling reading. This landmark CSIRO published study found mammal extinctions were 40% higher than previously thought. 29 Australian land mammals have become extinct, nearly 10% of our original terrestrial mammal fauna, and 63 species are threatened and require urgent conservation action, which is 30% of our surviving terrestrial mammals. These losses and potential losses represent over a third of the 315 species present at the time of European settlement. Since the 1840s, we've lost mammals at the rate of one species per decade. On current trends, there will be many more extinctions of Australian mammals in the next 1 or 2 generations. The decline in our mammal fauna over the last 10 to 15 years has been severe. As the Australian Wildlife Conservancy, known as AWC, pointed out in their winter 2014 edition of Wildlife Matters, the bilby and numbat have declined, with the numbat population now less than 1,000 mature adults. The brush-tailed bettong has suffered a catastrophic decline from over 200,000 animals to an estimated population of around 10,000 animals. The plight of the golden-backed tree rat highlights the severe declines in northern Australia. On mainland Australia, it has disappeared from the Northern Territory, including Kakadu National Park, and survives only in a thin strip along the Kimberley coast. Lesser-known species, such as the fawn antechinus, are also in steep decline, while other species are so rarely detected that they could disappear without us knowing. Even iconic species are disappearing. The koala and Tasmanian devil are nationally threatened, and the once common platypus is classified as near threatened. Most Australians know of and regret the extinction of the Tasmanian tiger or thylacine, but also important are the other 28 mammal species now extinct. These species played important and irreplaceable roles in our country's ecology. These species were part of the fabric of this country. Australia has the worst rate of mammal extinctions in the world, and the situation isn't improving thanks to feral predators such as cats. Feral cats have been identified as the major cause of population decline. Federal and state governments are spending more than $1 billion per annum on biodiversity conservation, but the return on this investment would, I think, make a corporate boardroom shake its head. Only 4 of the 63 threatened mammal species have materially improved their conservation standing during the last 10 to 15 years, while the other 59 species have declined or at best maintained their precarious position over the same period. What is needed is a new model in conjunction with research into a safe and targeted form of biological control to address the issue of feral cat control. It truly is a frightening statistic that 75 million native animals are killed by feral cats each night. This includes not only mammals but also birds and reptiles as well. The CSIRO estimates that there are 15 million feral cats in Australia, each killing an average 5 animals a night. The AWC is conducting the largest feral cat research program in Australian history in an attempt to unlock the secrets to effective cat control. It manages 23 sanctuaries covering over 3 million hectares, which facilitates effective conservation of Australian animal species and the habitats in which they live. A centrepiece of their model in southern and central Australia is the establishment of large feral-free areas or mainland islands, a model they are looking to extend to northern Australia. 32 nationally threatened mammals, including bats, are found in their sanctuaries. The work of the AWC represents a new model for conservation. As Chief Executive Atticus Fleming says, we have delivered significant increases in our populations of greater bilbies, numbats, woylies, bridled nail-tailed wallabies and more. Why are our results generally bucking the trend of the last decade? In most cases it's because we've invested wisely in the establishment of large fox and cat-free areas. The Mammal Action Plan highlights the importance of additional mainland fenced islands until an effective landscape-scale control for feral cats is developed. AWC is leading the way on both strategies. And, Deputy Speaker, I commend to the House the work of AWC, or Australian Wildlife Conservancy, in protecting our rare and precious Australian animals.
Call the honourable member for Reid.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Sunday marks 12 months since the last federal election, and as a new member of this great place, and someone that doesn't, and I say this a lot, doesn't come from a political background, it's been an interesting 12 months. And what I would like to do tonight is make some random observations on a few topics on a variety of fronts, because one of the driving factors of coming down to this place, coming from a background that is a little different. I'm a proud third-generation Western Sydney publican, come from a family business background, and one of the frustrations pre-politics for me was the quality of debate we have in this place and the lack of the diversity of the backgrounds of the people that partake in the debate. And I just thought tonight I'd take the opportunity to throw some random thoughts out there. The first one today, the opposition leader spoke after question time in his MPI about superannuation, and the fact that none on this side understood what it meant, how it worked. We didn't know what manual labour was about. I took great offence at that, Deputy Speaker. As someone that has employed thousands and thousands of people in my time and my father's time, my grandfather's time, has invested, I would hate to think how many millions and millions of dollars in superannuation. And for someone that has stood on the front door of a hotel at all times of the day and night, we in small business and family business land, we know what manual labour is. There are 55% of the country employed in the SME space. We get it. We understand what super is. We invest in it every day. I want to talk a little about the mining tax. The concept of the super profits tax, it's always, before I got here, it blew my mind. If it's set at 30% company tax and you have top-up Division 7A tax, whatever you have after it, a percentage tax scale is a super profits tax. The more you make, the more you'll pay. And this argument that we should tax, be it mining, and now the Greens are turning to banks, the financial reality is that the companies will just pass that on to shareholders. And that's the reality. And guess what? When you look at the share registries of some of the biggest companies in this country, they are full of superannuants. And it is a self-fulfilling prophecy that we are asking them to pay twice. So I wouldn't mind the member for Gorton and pay it at the personal tax rate. Yeah. So I mean, these are discussions we need to have over time. These are sensible discussions. Pay it 47 cents in the dollar versus 30. Right now, company tax is a flow-through mechanism, and these are some of the serious discussions that I'm sure, with a tax review due, we will take on over time. But the last one I wanted to talk about was uni versus trade. And tonight in this place we've been speaking on an act with regards to uni education. I come from a part of Sydney that right now, and you've read it in the papers in the last month, is enduring a drastic shortage of trade labour, of brickies, of plumbers, of gyppies, of sparkies. And one of the best things that I've seen coming from Western Sydney of what hasn't been spoken about tonight in the first 12 months is the expansion of the help scheme into trades. It needs to happen. We need a structural, and there's this ideal, and I get it, that you want, I'm the first generation of my family to go to university. There's an ideal that you want your children to go to university, but there should be no stigma attached to getting a trade. And it should be supported, and it is, I mean, you look at the history of trades in this country, and in my electorate of Reid, we took massive amounts of post-World War II Greek and Italian migration. They were the brickies, they were the gyppies, they were the backbone on which our local communities through Five Dock, through Concord, and all these different places were built. It was built on their backs. And at a time where a son in year 10, 2 years to go, with no idea what he wants to do. In fact, truth be told, he wants to be an actor. And now, you know, my father in his generation was so desperate for me to go to university. I want him to have any opportunity that he wants. It's not a force it down your throat, go to uni or do nothing at all. And if you don't go to uni, you're not in some way bettering or maximising your potential. What I am proud to be, Deputy Speaker, after 12 months in the job, is part of a government that, yes, inherited a mess. Yes, we have structural budget problems. Yes, we need to have sensible and serious debate in this country. Yes, we need to listen to a vast array of people from a variety of backgrounds. But we must always do one thing: aim our policies and government at making this country a better place for our children, because in the short time we're here, we're just looking after it for them.
Order. Call the honourable member for Oxley.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. And last week in Parliament I was delighted to meet 12-year-old Claire Falls. Claire is a passionate young soccer player from right here in the ACT. Claire is also vision impaired and has a condition called strabismus that affects her depth perception and three-dimensional vision. But what makes Claire stand out is she is a remarkable activist for inclusive soccer. She's somebody who cares about her fellow players and understands that participating in sport is a really important thing to do. Claire's passion has already led to the creation of an annual one-day tournament called Fever, Football for Everyone. Fever is a tournament that has a basic rule. If anyone on the pitch needs the rules modified to suit their special needs, then the rules are changed. And that's a great thing. That is about inclusion. Each team in the Fever tournament is required to play one game of blind soccer as well, just so they get it, so that they can understand what it's like for other people who may be vision impaired. Blind soccer uses a modified pitch, blindfolds and an audible ball. The idea of including a game of blind football during the Fever tournament is to give everybody an understanding of the struggle that blind players go through to play the game that they love. And it's amazing that at the age of just 12 years, Claire was able to establish a football tournament. And having met her, I can say I'm more than delighted. I was actually astounded by her maturity, her ability, her passion for what she does, and her capability. She has taken on quite a few tasks aside from just playing football. She was also able to lobby successfully to allow an audible ball to be used in her club games, so she was not forced to give up playing after her diagnosis. Claire is a champion, there is no question of that already. But now Claire has a new campaign. The Pararoos are Australia's Paralympic football team. They are currently ranked 10th in the world, and by any standard, if you were to take soccer, football, in this country and say we're ranked 10th in the world, I think there'd be a lot of people that are pretty excited. Absolutely. And to have our Pararoos and Paralympic football team ranked at that place is remarkable. And until recently, they received federal funding of $175,000. Now, by anyone's terms, from a government perspective, $175,000 is a minuscule amount of money. But of course, as we'd all agreed to the Pararoos, this is an awful lot of money. Unfortunately and sadly, the Australian Sports Commission has decided to stop this funding. And there are many people who don't agree. Claire is one of them, and there are many others. Claire has decided, though, not to sit back and allow this to just happen. She wants to take action, and she has done that. Claire decided to write to the Prime Minister and the Minister for Sport. Unfortunately, despite a very well-written letter, and I can assure you it is well beyond her years, and she did write it, she received a reply from the Prime Minister which has to be said was a little dismissive and perhaps a tad patronising. The Prime Minister's response to Claire didn't mention the Pararoos or funding, but it did thank her for taking an interest in our system of government. As the Prime Minister found out when Claire took his reply to the media, Claire is precisely the wrong 12-year-old to dismiss out of hand. It must be said the Minister for Sport did send Claire a proper response that treated her and the funding issue with some dignity and respect. I too wrote to the Minister about the Pararoos funding and have just this week received an almost identical response, and I do thank the Minister for that, because I know he did read my letter. Despite the Minister's words, it is clear that no decision to restore funding for the Pararoos has been taken. Claire will not put off this setback and has launched an online campaign. Now, the petition has already gathered some more than 82,000 pledges of support and signatures with a simple challenge for government. If she can get 175,000 people to pledge $1 each, will the government match it? And there is no doubt that she is well on her way to getting to her goal of 175, be it through sponsors and pledges and support. And I hope that the Prime Minister and the Minister for Sport will rise to meet that challenge. The petition is online, and I'd encourage all members of Parliament, from just all members of Parliament, members of the community, to have a look at this wonderful petition, this campaign, absolutely being driven by this most wonderful and as I said earlier, delightful young woman who's 12 years old. This young girl who is mature beyond her years. She has the capacity to meet and sit and talk with shadow ministers, former ministers, put her case succinctly, clearly, and dare I say it, much, much better than many a lobbyist and industry specialist I've met in this place in the past. I pay credit to her for her efforts. Thank you.
Member's time has expired and I call the honourable member for Banks.
Well, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Well, Deputy Speaker, the people of Banks elected me because they wanted to see change in the way that the government is run. And coming up to the one-year anniversary of that very important change, I thought it would be useful to reflect on the important changes that we've seen. So people in Banks, they wanted to see the carbon tax go. They wanted us to get the borders under control. They wanted us to address the extraordinary legacy of debt and deficit and economic mismanagement of the previous government. And they also, Deputy Speaker, wanted us to build the roads that we so desperately need, like the West Connects in my own electorate. And Deputy Speaker, we're delivering on all of those commitments. The carbon tax is gone, of course. There's been one unauthorised boat arrival in the nation this year, leading to important humanitarian and economic benefits. The budget mess is being addressed. It's a big job, but we've started that task, Deputy Speaker. And the roads are being delivered. The West Connects in my electorate will save more than 20 minutes for the average person driving to work in peak hour, and that's a very big deal, Deputy Speaker. We've also closed free trade agreements with Japan and Korea, and we're working on a very big one, of course, with China under the experienced stewardship of the Minister for Trade. And we've also declared war on bureaucratic paralysis. We've made some tough calls. We've finally said, let's build Western Sydney an airport that it so desperately needs. We've said that companies should be financed through profits, not taxpayer subsidies. And we've approved projects through environmental projects worth literally hundreds of billions of dollars and tens of thousands of jobs. So it's a very impressive record of delivering on commitments, Deputy Speaker. But the contrast that we see on the other side is really quite striking, because over there we see mediocrity, Deputy Speaker, in thought and deed. It's an opposition that is reactive, shallow and increasingly irrelevant, mired in negativity and unable to raise beyond the discredited thinking of the 1970s. Can't get behind the reform legacy of their own government in the 80s and 90s through Hawke and Keating, or even the ideas of their more thoughtful members, like the well-known intellectual and pamphleteer, the member for Fraser, Deputy Speaker. Their solution to every single problem can be summarised in 3 words: spend more money. Now, that's a very, very simple solution, but it's manifestly a failure, Deputy Speaker. And they point to OECD debt levels like they're a good thing, as if we want to join the moribund economies, many of which are in the OECD, that are so burdened by huge levels of debt and massive levels of unemployment. They purport to care about debt and deficit, Deputy Speaker, but there's a big logical problem with that they haven't passed a surplus or delivered a surplus budget since 1989, which is a very long time ago, Deputy Speaker. And they cling to the GFC like some sort of economic life raft to explain away all problems. But, you know, the GFC doesn't make up for the economic vandalism of the NBN or for sending cheques to dead people. They're speaking, I've noticed, Deputy Speaker, increasingly to themselves, trying to outdo one another with stinging social media critiques of government policy. You see them in question time, Deputy Speaker, heads down, thumbs flying, tweeting to the converted. Now, we deliver government with a purpose. They delivered government by press release. We deliver outcomes. They delivered more announcements than the births, deaths and marriages page. Now, we care about small business, Deputy Speaker. They care about small unions. We're focused on the long-term future of the nation, like all governments should be. They're focused on this afternoon's edition of PM Agenda. Now, infrastructure, Deputy Speaker, we care about the practical projects, things like building the WestConnex in Banks, and they are focused on confused rationalisations for failed infrastructure policies. Now, Deputy Speaker, the government is an enormous organisation. Its revenue is 13 times that of Telstra. To put it in perspective, we have immense responsibilities. It's a serious business, and this government is delivering serious outcomes.
Order it being 8 p.m, the debate is interrupted. The House stands adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.